Welcome back, everybody, for our final deep dive. We've explored a lot together, from the power of stories to the perils of technology. But today we're kind of turning our gaze forward. How can we as individuals and societies cultivate resilience in the face of, the 21st century's unprecedented challenges?
Yeah.
We've got Yuval Noah Harari's thought-provoking insights from 21 lessons and Homo Deus as our guideposts.
Right.
Get ready, because we're about to unpack some huge questions about the very future of humanity and what role you can play in it.
It is pretty fascinating, isn't it? I mean, we're not just talking about surviving here, It's about thriving.
Yeah.
It's about finding ways to adapt and even flourish amidst all this uncertainty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Harari doesn't sugarcoat things either. He argues that we're at a crossroads,
Right.
facing this growing disillusionment with liberalism, the very ideology that shaped much of the modern world.
And this disillusionment comes from multiple angles.
Oh, yeah?
Some folks, you see, they're discovering they actually prefer the old hierarchical world, and they're resistant to giving up their, privileges.
Like they long for the good old days.
Yeah.
Even if those days weren't so good for everyone.
Exactly.
It reminds me of those who kind of romanticize the past, overlooking its complexities and inequality.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Then there are those who feel like liberalism and globalization have only benefited a small elite at the expense of the masses,
Right.
creating a system that's rigged against them.
So it's this sense of being left behind, like a betrayal of the core ideas of equality and opportunity that liberalism promised.
Exactly.
It's no wonder people are disillusioned.
Right.
But where does that leave us in terms of facing the future?
Well, that's where the technological challenge comes in.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting. Harari stresses that the technological revolutions in infotech and biotech, they're just beginning.
Right.
And they will pose the hardest trials humankind has ever encountered.
Harder than, say, surviving an ice age or even fighting off a pandemic.
Potentially, yes.
Wow.
Any ideology or belief system that seeks to shape the future has to make sense of and incorporate these technologies.
It's almost like we're building the plane as we're flying it.
Right.
Except the plane is powered by artificial intelligence, and we're not even sure where we're going.
A very apt analogy.
Yeah.
Take AI doctors, for example. Imagine AI doctors instantly updating billions of other AI doctors about new discoveries. Individual human expertise suddenly seems almost irrelevant.
Wow, that's a powerful image. It really highlights how these technologies could completely transform the landscape of knowledge and expertise.
And it's not just about knowledge either. Think about the potential impact of AI and automation on our jobs and livelihoods. Harari highlights AI's increasing capabilities, surpassing humans in tasks like chess.
Right.
Even areas we traditionally associate with creativity.
It's true. I remember reading about AlphaZero, that AI that learned to play chess at a master level in just 4 hours. It's mind-boggling and a little unsettling.
It certainly raises concerns about massive unemployment and the emergence of a useless class, as Harari puts it.
Right.
People who lack the mental stamina to keep up with AI.
So if AI can outperform us in so many fields, what will be our unique value? What makes us, human?
That is the question worth pondering, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it ties into another crucial aspect of Harari's argument, the power of algorithms and big data. He explores how algorithms can analyze vast amounts of data and make decisions about us often better than humans can.
We already see this happening, right? I mean, we trust algorithms to recommend movies, navigate traffic, even filter our news feeds. It's becoming increasingly integrated into our daily lives.
Exactly. But this also raises ethical concerns about biased transparency and the erosion of human decision-making. Imagine relying on algorithms for life-changing choices, like careers and relationships.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel.
I know.
But it feels increasingly plausible. Does that mean we're doomed to become slaves to algorithms?
Not necessarily. Harari argues that despite the advancements in AI, human consciousness remains crucial. He warns that neglecting its development could lead to AI empowering human stupidity.
Okay. Now that is a truly frightening scenario.
Yeah.
What does that even look like?
Picture a world where bots can manipulate our emotions better than our own mothers, where we're constantly bombarded with personalized propaganda and misinformation tailored to exploit our deepest fears and desires. It's a dystopian vision, but one we need to be aware of.
It's a stark reminder that technology is a tool, And like any tool,
All right.
it could be used for good or evil.
Absolutely.
It all comes down to the humans wielding it.
Precisely. So how do we navigate this complex landscape and prepare ourselves for the challenges ahead?
Yeah.
Harari's answer in a word is resilience.
Resilience.
Yeah.
That ability to adapt, to learn to bounce back from setbacks. In a world where the only constant is change, it sounds like an essential survival skill. But how do we cultivate resilience in the face of such overwhelming challenges?
That's the key question.
Yeah.
And it's one we'll explore in more depth as we continue our deep dive
Okay.
into Harari's work.
All right. Sounds good.
Building on this idea of resilience, right, Harari suggests kind of a surprising strategy. He highlights the power of meditation,
Okay.
not as some esoteric practice, but like as a practical tool for navigating this chaotic 21st century.
Now, I have to admit, I used to be pretty skeptical about meditation. I always pictured it as something for, yoga retreats and spiritual gurus. But you're saying Harari sees it differently.
Absolutely. He presents it as a way to pay closer attention to reality, not escape from it.
Right.
It's about becoming aware of your thoughts,
Yeah.
emotions, bodily sensations without judgment, almost like an internal observer.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could be helpful. But how does simply observing our thoughts help us deal with, say, the rise of AI or the threat of climate change? Those are pretty massive external problems.
Think about it this way. A lot of our anxiety and fear comes from getting caught up in stories. Stories about the future, stories about ourselves. Meditation helps us step back from those stories, to see them for what they are. Just thoughts.
So instead of being controlled by these often negative narratives,
Right.
we can start to observe them,
Yeah.
create some distance, and maybe even question their validity.
Exactly. And that distance, that ability to detach from our thoughts and emotions, that's crucial for building resilience. It allows us to respond to challenges with more clarity and wisdom rather than just reacting out of fear or anger.
It's like hitting the pause button before we hit the panic button.
Exactly.
It gives us the space to choose a more thoughtful response.
Yes. And in that space, you have the freedom to choose how you want to respond. You can choose to be proactive, to seek solutions, to connect with others who share your concerns.
Harari also talks about the power of understanding how our minds work,
Yes.
especially the role of algorithms in shaping our thoughts and behaviors. He compares our brains to incredibly complex algorithms.
Isn't that a bit reductionist, though? I mean, we're more than just biological computers, aren't we? Of course we are. But understanding the algorithmic nature of our minds can be incredibly empowering. Think of it like this. If you understand how a computer program works, you can start to debug it, right? You can identify the glitches, the patterns that are no longer serving you.
So if we can understand these mental algorithms, can we reprogram them? Break free from those ingrained patterns that might be holding us back?
That's precisely what Harari suggests. Through practices like mindfulness, we can become more aware of our mental habits.
Right.
And consciously choose which ones to cultivate and which ones to let go of.
That's an intriguing idea. It's almost like becoming the architect of your own mind. But let's be realistic. Not everyone is going to suddenly start meditating or studying neuroscience. What about some practical steps we can take in our everyday lives to build resilience?
One crucial step is embracing lifelong learning. In this era of rapid technological advancement, the skills we learned in school or even early in our careers can quickly become obsolete. Think of it like constantly updating the software of your mind.
So it's not just about learning new skills. It's about cultivating a mindset of curiosity,
Yes.
being open to new ideas and experiences.
Absolutely. And it's about being willing to step outside of your comfort zone, to challenge your existing beliefs and assumptions. The more we expose ourselves to different perspectives, the more adaptable and resilient we become. It's like building a mental immune system.
A mental immune system. I love that analogy. Just like our physical immune system needs exposure to different pathogens to develop antibodies, our minds need exposure to different ideas to develop resilience. So are there any other mental workouts we can do to boost our resilience?
Of course. Remember, we're social creatures. We thrive in communities. And in a world that's becoming increasingly digital and fragmented, it's easy to feel isolated and disconnected.
So you're saying that fostering strong social connections is key to building resilience?
Precisely. Cultivating meaningful relationships with family, friends, and our communities is essential. These connections provide support, a sense of belonging, and a shared purpose.
It's like building a safety net, a web of support that can catch us when we stumble. And let's be honest, we're all bound to stumble in this increasingly complex world.
Exactly. But remember, resilience isn't just about surviving. It's also about finding ways to thrive, to find joy and meaning, even amidst all the chaos.
This makes me think about Harari's discussion of finding meaning in a world where traditional stories and ideologies are struggling. He suggests that searching for meaning in life can actually be a trap. It sets us up for disappointment because nothing in this world is truly permanent or completely satisfying. So if we can't rely on these external sources of meaning, where do we find it?
Well, Harari suggests finding it in the very act of living in the present moment, in the simple joys of being alive.
So it's about appreciating the small things, the beauty of nature, the warmth of human connection, the satisfaction of a job well done.
Exactly. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness with all things our role in the grand web of life. But let's be realistic. Building individual resilience is only part of the equation. We're also facing massive systemic challenges. Political polarization, economic inequality, the relentless pace of technological change. How do we navigate those larger issues?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we tackle these huge systemic problems? And I appreciate that Harari doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
He doesn't offer simple solutions, no. But he does provide a valuable perspective. As a historian, he helps us see the bigger picture, the long arcs of history that have led us to this point.
So how does that historical perspective inform our approach to these systemic challenges? Does history offer any clues about what might work?
Well, one thing Harari emphasizes is that history is not deterministic. Just because things have always been a certain way doesn't mean they have to stay that way. Humans have an incredible capacity for change adaptation, creating new systems.
So we're not just pawns in some grand historical game.
Wow.
We have the agency to shape our own future.
Exactly. And the first step towards creating change is awareness. We need to understand how these systems work, how they came to be, and how they impact our lives.
It's about education, critical thinking, questioning the assumptions that underpin these systems. We can't change what we don't understand.
Absolutely. It's also important to remember that these systems aren't some abstract external forces. They're made up of individuals, people making choices, acting on beliefs, pursuing their own interests.
So if we want to change the system, we need to start with ourselves. Examine our own beliefs, our own behaviors, and how we might be contributing to the problem.
And we need to be willing to challenge those beliefs, to step outside our comfort zones, and to have difficult conversations with people who might not see things the way we do.
This reminds me of Harari's warning about the dangers of tribalism, of getting so caught up in our own group identities that we lose sight of our shared humanity. Feels like that's become even more prevalent in recent years.
You're right. And Harari argues that the biggest challenges we face, climate change, nuclear proliferation, the rise of AI, they're global in nature. They require global solutions.
Which means we need to find ways to transcend those tribal divisions, to build bridges across cultures and ideologies, and to find common ground.
Right.
But how do we do that in a world that feels increasingly polarized and divided?
It's not easy, that's for sure. It requires empathy, compassion, and a willingness to listen to perspectives that might challenge our own. We have to be willing to step outside our echo chambers and engage in genuine dialogue with those who hold different views.
It's about remembering that we're all in this together, sharing this one planet, facing these challenges as a collective.
Precisely. And if we can hold on to that sense of shared humanity, even in the face of adversity, we might just have a chance at creating a future that is more just sustainable and resilient for all of us.
So as we wrap up this final deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember?
I think it's this. The future is not something that happens to us. It's something we create. And the choices we make today, both individually and collectively, will determine what that future looks like.
It's not about predicting the future, it's about shaping it.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that we have the power, the resilience, and the wisdom to do just that.
Well, thank you for joining us on this journey through Harari's ideas. We hope these deep dives have given you some new insights, some food for thought, and maybe even some inspiration to take action in your own lives. What will your role be in shaping the future?
Remember, the most important thing is to keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep connecting with each other. The future is ours to create.
And on that note, we bid you farewell. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep diving deep.